Did Jesus really rise from the dead? It's a question that has echoed through centuries, igniting debate and inspiring faith. For some, it's the cornerstone of their belief system, a beacon of hope. For others, it's a claim too extraordinary to accept without scrutiny. The question blurs the lines between the physical and the metaphysical, making it compelling and challenging. We are drawn to the mystery, to the possibility of something beyond our everyday experience. The idea of life conquering death holds an undeniable allure, yet our rational minds demand evidence. This is the tightrope we must walk as we delve into the question of Jesus' resurrection. For Christians, the resurrection of Jesus is the foundation of their faith. The Apostle Paul wrote, "And if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile." 1 Corinthians 15:17. Paul's words highlight the centrality of the resurrection in Christian theology. It transforms Jesus from a revered teacher into the Son of God. The resurrection is seen as God's victory over sin and death, offering hope for eternal life. This belief has sustained Christians through persecution and inspired acts of love and compassion. When examining the resurrection, it's natural to seek confirmation beyond believers' accounts. Followers of Jesus would see his resurrection as a confirmation of their faith. The search for historical evidence takes us to Roman and Jewish historians of the first century. These sources offer context for understanding the social and political climate of the time. One might expect numerous references to Jesus in Roman records. However, first-century Palestine was often overlooked by Roman historians. Early Christians were a small sect within Judaism, unlikely to attract significant attention. Nevertheless, a few intriguing references to Jesus and his followers can be found. The first-century Jewish historian Josephus presents a debated case. In his Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus mentions James, the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ. This passage, known as the Testimonium Flavianum, has been debated, with some arguing it is a later Christian interpolation. The reference to Jesus as the Christ and his miracles raises red flags for some scholars. However, others argue that Josephus may have used the term Christ as a neutral designation. Despite the controversy, it confirms the existence of James and acknowledges Jesus as the Christ. This aligns with New Testament accounts and suggests Jesus was a figure of some renown. The relative silence of first-century sources regarding the resurrection can be interpreted in various ways. Some argue this silence undermines the historicity of the event. Others contend that the silence is not surprising given the social and political context. Early Christians were a marginalized group, and their claims would have been met with skepticism. The writings of Josephus, particularly the Testimonium Flavianum, present a puzzle for historians. This passage reads like an unexpected oasis of information about Jesus, but its authenticity has been debated. Skeptics point to the passage's positive tone towards Jesus, which seems at odds with Josephus's Jewish faith. The phrase, "if indeed one ought to call him a man," strikes many as an interpolation. The description of Jesus as a doer of wonderful works echoes Christian language. However, proponents argue that Josephus may have adopted a more neutral tone for a Roman audience. Josephus was known for his pragmatism and willingness to accommodate Roman perspectives. The mention of miracles was not unusual in ancient historiography. The debate over the Testimonium highlights the challenges of reconstructing history from fragmented sources. While it is impossible to definitively prove or disprove the passage's authenticity, the debate underscores the importance of uncovering every possible clue about the historical Jesus. The Gospel Tapestry: Four Voices, One Story. The four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, offer a multifaceted portrait of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Each Gospel has its unique emphasis and literary style, but they converge on the central claim that Jesus rose from the dead. This convergence suggests that the resurrection was a core tenet shared by diverse communities of believers. The Gospel writers present the resurrection as a transformative event. Jesus appears in a glorified body, capable of moving through locked doors and vanishing at will. This emphasis on the physicality of Jesus' resurrected body distinguishes the Christian understanding of resurrection. The Gospel accounts of the empty tomb reinforce the physical reality of the resurrection. The empty tomb serves as a sign that Jesus' body was no longer where it had been laid. The Gospel writers use the empty tomb to emphasize the appearances of the risen Jesus. The diversity of witnesses to the risen Jesus adds weight to the accounts. These witnesses are initially depicted as skeptical and fearful. It is through repeated encounters with the risen Jesus that their doubt gives way to belief. The Gospel accounts present a compelling picture of the resurrection. From perplexity to proclamation, the disciples' journey. The transformation of the disciples from a disheartened group to bold proclaimers of the resurrection is compelling. The Gospels depict the disciples as initially bewildered by the empty tomb. Their fear and doubt are presented with raw honesty. This portrayal of the disciples' initial skepticism lends credibility to the accounts. The resurrection appearances gradually turn their despair into hope. Jesus' appearances are extended encounters where he engages with his disciples. The resurrected Jesus is an active presence in their lives. The disciples' transformation is evident in the Apostle Peter. After the resurrection, Peter emerges as a bold leader, proclaiming the risen Christ. This dramatic shift in Peter's demeanor is best explained by his encounter with the risen Jesus. The biblical accounts present a compelling picture of the disciples' journey from doubt to belief. Their transformation underscores the power of the resurrection event. The resurrection had the capacity to radically alter lives and reshape destinies. The Gospels offer glimpses into the nature of Jesus' resurrected body and the significance of his appearances. Jesus' resurrected body is described as both physical and transformed. He bears the marks of his crucifixion, yet he can appear and disappear at will. This paradoxical nature points to a reality that transcends our everyday experience. The resurrection is a foretaste of the new creation. Jesus' post-resurrection appearances serve specific purposes. He appears to individuals like Mary Magdalene, offering comfort. He appears to the disciples, commissioning them to continue his mission. He appears to doubters like Thomas, providing evidence to strengthen their faith. These appearances underscore the personal nature of the resurrection. Jesus is raised to new life in relationship with his followers. The resurrected Jesus is an active presence in the lives of those who believe. Skeptics point to the relative silence of contemporary historical sources regarding Jesus' resurrection as evidence against its validity. They ask, where are the detailed refutations from Roman authorities or critiques from Jewish scholars? However, this argument overlooks the historical context and social dynamics. First-century Palestine was teeming with religious and political movements. The Roman Empire was more concerned with maintaining order than investigating every religious claim. Early Christians were a small sect within Judaism. Their beliefs initially dismissed, their claims of a resurrected Messiah would not have been perceived as a threat until later. Historical records from antiquity are fragmentary. The vast majority of documents from that era have been lost. The surviving texts represent a small and often biased sample. To argue that the absence of widespread contemporary refutations equates to proof that the resurrection didn't occur is to misunderstand the nature of historical inquiry. Another counter-argument suggests that the resurrection appearances were hallucinations experienced by Jesus' grief-stricken followers. These disciples, devastated by their leader's execution, yearned for his return. In their emotional state, they convinced themselves that they had seen the risen Jesus. This explanation fails to account for several key aspects of the resurrection narratives. The Gospel accounts depict the disciples as initially skeptical of the resurrection reports. They require tangible proof, demanding to see Jesus' wounds. This initial resistance suggests they were not prone to mass delusion. The variety and nature of the resurrection appearances challenge the hallucination hypothesis. The risen Jesus appeared to individuals and groups, including over 500 people. Hallucinations are rarely experienced collectively. The resurrection appearances are extended encounters where Jesus engages with his followers. These detailed encounters go beyond the typical characteristics of hallucinations. The resurrection narratives present a compelling case for the physical reality of the risen Jesus. The stolen body theory suggests disciples took Jesus' body and claimed he rose from the dead. But this theory fails to explain the Roman guards at the tomb. Disciples were ordinary people, not masterminds of a heist. The empty tomb itself remains unexplained. As we stand at the intersection of historical inquiry and religious belief, attempting to reconcile the tangible evidence of the past with the profound claims of faith, we must acknowledge the inherent limitations of both approaches. History relies on interpreting fragmented and often biased sources. The resurrection of Jesus transcends the normal laws of nature, defying easy categorization within historical analysis. Faith, while deeply personal, cannot be subjected to the same kind of objective verification as historical data. Belief requires a leap of faith, an acceptance of something beyond empirical proof. This does not invalidate faith, but places it in a different category of human experience. The challenge is to acknowledge the distinct yet interconnected roles of history and faith in understanding the resurrection. The human mind, wired for logic and reason, naturally seeks explanations that fit neatly within our existing framework of understanding. We crave order, predictability, and the reassurance that the universe operates according to a set of knowable laws. Yet the resurrection of Jesus, if it truly occurred, challenges this very framework, forcing us to confront the limits of our logic and embrace the possibility of something beyond our current comprehension. To approach the resurrection solely through the lens of logic is to risk missing its essence. It is akin to trying to capture the beauty of a symphony using only mathematical equations, or to explain the awe-inspiring vastness of the cosmos using only the language of physics. While these disciplines provide valuable insights, they cannot fully encompass the totality of the experience. The resurrection at its core is about transformation, about the possibility of life conquering death, of hope triumphing over despair, of love transcending the limitations of the physical world. It speaks to a reality that exists beyond the confines of our current understanding, a reality where the impossible becomes possible, where the seemingly immutable laws of nature are suspended, and where death itself is ultimately defeated. To truly grapple with the resurrection, we must be willing to set aside our preconceived notions, to embrace the paradox and the mystery. We must be open to the possibility that some truths lie beyond the reach of our current logic, that the universe holds secrets yet to be revealed, and that the human capacity for wonder and awe is as essential to understanding as our capacity for reason and analysis. The question of whether Jesus rose from the dead remains one of history's most enduring and fiercely debated topics. The evidence, while compelling to many, remains open to interpretation. Yet the enduring power of the resurrection narrative lies in its capacity to inspire hope, to offer comfort in times of grief, and to motivate acts of love and compassion. For centuries, the belief that Jesus conquered death has provided solace to the grieving, strength to the persecuted, and purpose to the lost. Its impact on human history is undeniable. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to believe in the resurrection of Jesus is a profoundly personal one. It is a decision that should be made from a place of genuine seeking, of wrestling with the evidence, and of listening to the whispers of both history and the human heart. For within that sacred space where reason and revelation intersect, we may just catch a glimpse of the transformative power that lies at the heart of the resurrection story. Our journey through history and scripture leaves us at a crossroads. We've examined the evidence and weighed the arguments. The resurrection of Jesus remains resistant to definitive proof or disproof. Its echoes in history and impact on lives cannot be dismissed. The silence of some sources speaks to the fragmentary nature of ancient records. The stolen body theory crumbles under logistical improbability. The hallucination hypothesis struggles with the variety of resurrection appearances. Biblical accounts present a compelling narrative of transformed lives. Disciples emerged as bold proclaimers, willing to face persecution. This transformation demands an explanation beyond dismissals. History cannot render a definitive verdict on the resurrection. It provides context and glimpses into the social and cultural milieu. The resurrection defies easy categorization within historical analysis. It beckons us to move beyond the tangible and grapple with the extraordinary. The enduring legacy of the resurrection lies in its capacity to inspire hope, to offer comfort in times of grief, and to challenge us to live lives defined by love, forgiveness, and transformation. The empty tomb symbolizes hope that death does not have the final word and that love can triumph over loss. It stands as an invitation, a challenge, and a promise to delve deeper into faith, to live with love and hope, and to believe in new life.